Okay, let's just get right into it. We all know the internet is pretty much just a giant, chaotic machine for delivering cat content, right? But what if I told you that wasn't an accident? We're going to unpack the secret history of how a few incredibly famous cats didn't just go viral, they actually and accidentally built the digital world that we all live in today.
I mean, it's the big question, isn't it? Before there were influencers, before there were TikTok dances, there were cats. It's just the fundamental truth of being online. But why them? Seriously, what is it about cats that made them the unofficial rulers of the digital kingdom?
Well, the answer is this amazing, almost untold story of these accidental pioneers. These weren't big media companies or some marketing geniuses plotting in a boardroom. Nope. They were just regular people with their pets who stumbled into the spotlight and, in doing so, ended up shaping everything from meme culture to modern intellectual property law. So, before we meet the main players, let's dig into the psychology a bit. Why cats? Why did they become this perfect canvas for all our digital emotions? The reasons are actually pretty wild. See, it's not random at all. Studies have actually shown that watching cat videos is a real form of stress relief for a lot of us. Their faces, they're super expressive, but also kind of mysterious, right? It lets us project whatever we're feeling onto them. And, in a world where everyone is carefully crafting their online persona, a cat's total lack of self-awareness, it feels like freedom. One minute, they're a majestic lion. The next, they're falling off a couch. It's just so relatable. All right, so now let's meet the Mount Rushmore of internet cats. These are the foundational figures, the ones whose stories literally wrote the blueprint for what viral fame even is. You've got Keyboard Cat, the original remix meme that started on a dusty old VHS tape. Then there's Grumpy Cat, who turned a single photograph into a business empire. Nyan Cat, that beautiful, weird symbol of early 2010s internet randomness. And finally, Lil Bub, the little miracle cat who used her fame for science and for charity. Each one of them, they represent a completely different chapter of internet history. And this is so crucial to understand. Each of these cats didn't just exist on the internet, they actually defined a specific era of it. Their stories are basically a timeline of how online culture grew up from this weird little hobby into a massive global industry. So let's start with the original gangster, Keyboard Cat. This is the story of how an absurd home video from the 1980s became the internet's first great collaborative joke. The timeline here is just mind-blowing. The footage of Fatso the cat was actually shot in 1984 on a VHS tape. It just sat on a shelf for over 20 years before his owner, Charlie Schmidt, uploaded it to this brand new website called YouTube in 2007. And even then, crickets for 2 more years, until a guy named Brad O'Farrell had this genius idea to slap the clip onto the end of a fail video. And that's when the meme was truly born. And this is a perfect illustration of remix culture. See, Schmidt's video was just a weird piece of art for him, but the internet gave it a whole new job, to be the soundtrack for spectacular failure. The meaning became completely disconnected from what the creator originally intended, and all the power was in the hands of the community. And that idea of collaborative creation flows perfectly into our next case study. Let's talk about Nyan Cat, the symbol of that beautifully strange, wonderfully surreal spirit of the early 2010s internet. The story of how this came to be is almost unbelievable. You have an artist in Texas, Chris Torres, who draws a pixelated cat with a Pop-Tart for a body during a live stream. Totally separately, a user in Japan uploads a super catchy synthesized song. Then, a third person on YouTube mashes the two together. 3 people on 2 different continents who had never spoken to each other accidentally created one of the most iconic memes in history. And here is where the story gets very modern. For a decade, Nyan Cat's value was that it was everywhere. You could copy it a million times. But in 2021, the original artist, Chris Torres, sold a one-of-a-kind remastered version of it as an NFT for, get this, over $500,000. That was a huge moment for the so-called meme economy. Okay, so if Keyboard Cat was about remixing, and Nyan Cat was about this surreal chaos, our next cat was about one thing: business. Meet Grumpy Cat, who absolutely perfected the art of turning a single viral moment into an empire. This quote just sums up her entire vibe, doesn't it? Her real name was Tartar Sauce, and her famous frown was because of feline dwarfism, but the internet saw that face and immediately made her the spirit animal for anyone who was just over it.
She was like this cultural pressure valve, giving all of us permission to just be a little bit annoyed.
And her owners were incredibly smart. They pioneered what we now call the meme-to-brand pipeline. They hired a meme manager, they filed trademarks, and they built this fortress of intellectual property around her image. This wasn't just some funny picture anymore. It was Grumpy Cat Limited, a full-blown corporation with books, a movie deal, the whole shebang.
Our final pioneer represents a completely different path to fame. Lil Bub wasn't a joke, she wasn't a grand, she was an inspiration. She used her celebrity for social good and even for scientific discovery.
Bub's totally unique look came from a whole host of rare genetic conditions. She was a permakitten, so she stayed tiny her whole life. She had extra toes, and she was the only cat ever recorded with this rare bone disease called osteopetrosis. But instead of being seen as flaws, those differences are exactly what made millions of people fall in love with her story of resilience.
And her owner, Mike Bertavasky, he channeled all that love into something truly powerful. Lil Bub's big fund has raised over $500,000 to help other pets with special needs. Her fame even led to a crowdfunded project that sequenced her entire genome, which was a landmark moment for citizen science.
So when you put all these stories together, you can literally see the new rules of the creator economy being written in real time. These cats were the test cases for how to turn clicks and likes into actual real-world empires.
And this contrast shows two completely opposite strategies. On the one hand, you have Keyboard Cat. Its value came from being open source. Anyone could use it, and that's what made it famous. The money came way, way later. On the other hand, you have Grumpy Cat's team, who built an IP fortress, where the value was all about exclusivity and tight legal control. These two models define the debate that's still happening in the creator economy today.
And these strategies got tested in court. The Scribblenauts lawsuit, which involved both 9cat and Keyboard Cat, was a watershed moment. It basically established that memes aren't just public jokes, they're valuable intellectual property. Then, at the Grumpy Cat lawsuit against a coffee company, proved that you could defend that IP just as aggressively as a huge corporation defends its logo.
So, what's the lasting legacy of these feline pioneers? What are the digital paw prints that they left behind for all of us? It's honestly so much bigger than just a few funny videos.
Just think about it for a second. The rules of viral marketing, the legal framework for owning something digital, the blueprint for the entire creator economy, even influencer-driven charity. So much of that was road-tested by these cats and their owners. They were the unwitting furry architects of the internet culture we all live in now. So the next time you share a meme, just remember the ghosts in the machine who made it all possible.